for an insurance policy.
It's like they're practically written in a secret language, right?
Exactly. But good news is you handed us your nationwide personal umbrella liability policy. So this deep dive, that's what we're tackling.
And that's a smart move because knowing what it covers, what it doesn't, that's empowering.
Absolutely. So no more glazed over eyes when reading these things. We're getting you fluent in insurance ease today, starting with the definitions on page 3.
Yeah, the definitions, think of it like a glossary. Like once you get these key terms, everything else, it'll become, well, much clearer.
Makes sense. Okay, so you and your first up seems, well, simple enough.
You'd think so, right? But it's actually more nuanced than that.
More to it than meets the eye. All right, tell me more.
So you might think it's just the name on the policy, right? But it also covers your spouse,
Okay.
civil partner, if that's recognized in your state, and even a domestic partner who lives in your home. They're all you.
Interesting.
And get this, if a spouse or civil partner moves out, they might still be covered for like up to 90 days.
90 days. Wow. That's not something I'd bet most people would realize. Okay, so speaking of being surprised, who else might be surprised to find themselves under the umbrella, so to speak, of being an insured?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So it extends to family members who live with you, anyone driving one of your covered vehicles, with permission.
Of course, of course.
And even, get this, someone who's legally responsible for your pet. So let's say your dog walker is out with Fido, and Fido decides to take a bite out of trouble. That walker would be covered under your umbrella policy as an insured person.
Okay, now that's peace of mind for pet owners out there. All right, so next up is occurrence. Now, hopefully no one's ever in a situation where they have to, use this policy, but let's break it down what actually counts as an occurrence.
Right, so an occurrence, it's not just a one-time thing, So it covers accidents, sure, but it can also be like continuous or repeated exposure to something harmful. Think of it like a slow leak in your bathroom, upstairs bathroom. And then over time, it, causes water damage in the apartment below. So that's ongoing, right? Not just a single event. But it's still considered an occurrence under this policy.
Okay, yeah, that makes it really clear.
Yeah.
And importantly, that occurrence has to result in bodily injury, property damage, or personal injury. And of course, it's got to be caused by, an insured person.
Exactly. And you know what? We should probably unpack those terms a bit more because as we've already seen, like the details, well, they really matter.
Okay, so we've got some key terms figured out, but now the million-dollar question, well, maybe more than $1 million. What does this umbrella policy actually cover?
Right. So it's like a safety net, right? It kicks in when your other insurance policies, reach their limit. So say you're in an accident, a bad one, and the court says, okay, you got to pay up $1.2 million in damages.
Yeah.
But your car insurance, it tops out at like $500,000.
Oof, that's a big gap.
Yeah. You're on the hook for $700,000 potentially.
And that's where this umbrella policy comes in. Saves the day.
Exactly. But, and this is important, there's this thing called the retained limit. You got to understand how that works. Think of it, imagine like a measuring cup. Your other insurance, your auto policy in this case, it fills it up to a point that's your retained limit. Your umbrella policy, it covers what's above that, up to its own limit, of course.
So even with the umbrella policy, you could still be responsible for some of the damages.
That's right, yeah. And that's why having enough underlying insurance is so important. You got to make sure your regular auto, home, whatever policies you've got, that they can actually meet those retained limit requirements, so your umbrella can actually do its job.
So in that example, that $1.2 million accident, your auto insurance covers $500,000. That's your retained limit. Your umbrella policy, let's say it's got a $1 million limit. It'll cover $200,000 of that remaining $700,000. You're on the hook for that first $500,000.
Exactly. You got it.
Makes you think, right?
Yeah.
All right, so another coverage detail, claims defense.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, because legal battles, lawyers aren't cheap.
Right, and it can get pricey fast. But the good news is your umbrella policy, it covers your legal representation, even if, get this, even if those claims against you are totally bogus.
Wow.
Frivolous lawsuit. Someone's trying to pull a fast one. Covered.
Oh, that's a relief, honestly. But what about, all the other expenses that come with a lawsuit, court fees, that kind of thing?
They're covered too. The policy calls those claims expenses, think court costs, those appeal bond premiums, even interest that piles up on a judgment. It's all in there.
It's like they thought of everything.
Yeah, they try to.
But there's always a but, right? Like, there's got to be some limit somewhere.
Of course, yeah, it's broad coverage, but it's not, like, unlimited. For example, there's a $100 per day cap on lost wages if you have to miss work because of a covered claim.
Oh, okay, there it is. Yeah. $100 a day, that's not going to cover everyone's lost income, especially if this whole thing drags on. Speaking of things that aren't covered, let's talk exclusions. All right, let's be honest. This is the part of the policy where, things get real. The exclusions, page 8, this is where it feels like you're navigating a minefield.
Yeah, this section, it definitely trips people up, but, once you understand the exclusions, that's when you can actually make, like, informed decisions.
Right.
You avoid those surprises down the road.
Exactly. Got to set those realistic expectations. So let's break these exclusions down, by topic. Let's bring them to life a little bit. First up, property. What are we looking at here?
Okay, so first thing to remember, this umbrella policy, it mainly protects you if you cause damage to someone else's stuff.
Okay.
Your own place. That's what your homeowner's insurance is for.
Right.
Renting. Your landlord's policy handles that. This is about those situations where it's like, you break it, you bought it,
Yeah.
but with someone else's things.
So, like, I accidentally back into my neighbor's fence. My bad. That's when my umbrella policy might come in.
Yeah, could do, especially if it's a lot of damage and you're past what your regular insurance covers. But, and there's always a but, right? There are some things they won't cover, like if the damage involves asbestos or lead paint, those hazardous materials.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, what about people with side hustles, or home-based businesses? What does the umbrella policy say about those?
Good question. So they define business pretty broadly, actually any trade, profession, even if you're just doing something part-time. So if something happens and it's directly related to that business activity, you might not be covered.
Okay. So let's say I'm, I don't know, delivering pizzas for some extra cash and I cause an accident. My umbrella policy probably won't help me out there.
Probably not, no. But there are a few exceptions, like if you're renting out your place every once in a while, or if you're making less than $2,000 a year from it. Oh, and if it's an insured minor, like they're babysitting to make a little money, that might be okay. Honestly, best thing to do, just be upfront with Nationwide about any business stuff you've got going on,
Yeah.
even if it seems small.
Right. Better safe than sorry.
Exactly.
All right. So vehicles, seems like there are a bunch of exclusions specific to those. What are the big ones?
Yeah, so one important one is if you're using your car for hire, like a rideshare or delivery service, if you don't have that specific commercial coverage, your umbrella policy probably won't apply. And always a good idea to double check that other vehicles like motorcycles, RVs, make sure those are specifically listed on your policy if you want coverage for them.
Okay. So that cross-country road trip in a rented RV, better read the fine print. Now, we got to talk about our furry friends, right? Dog owners especially. There are some exclusions in here you really need to know about.
For sure. We love our dogs, but, some breeds, they're just statistically more likely to bite.
Right.
The policy actually lists out a bunch of breeds that they specifically exclude: pit bulls, Rottweilers, Dobermans, to name a few. It's not about saying any breed is bad. It's just recognizing that some might be higher risk, and that affects your coverage.
Yeah, makes sense. So honesty with your insurance company about your dog's breed and any history, that's key.
It really is. The more transparent you are, the better your chances of having the right coverage when you need it.
Okay, any other important exclusions we got to cover before we wrap up?
Oh, one more thing. This policy usually won't cover injuries related to, like, communicable diseases, sexual misconduct, or using controlled substances.
Gotcha. This has been super informative, maybe even a little overwhelming. What are, like, the big takeaways here? What should people really remember?
I think the biggest thing is this umbrella policy is an amazing safety net, that extra protection. But it's not going to be there for absolutely everything life throws at you. The more you understand what's covered and what's not, the better decisions you can make about the risks you're taking. And, hey, if you need to look into other coverage, you can do that too.
So well said. After this deep dive, you might even want to give your insurance agent a call, right? It's all about finding that balance, peace of mind, and knowing you're covered. Well, there you have it, a deep dive into your nationwide personal umbrella liability policy. Hopefully you're feeling a little more confident about what it all means, how it works. Remember, knowledge is power, and this policy is designed to give you some peace of mind. Read through it, take what you've learned here, and if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your agent. Until next time, happy diving.